not putting players in position where they're playing with people that are taking advantage of a situation or doing things unethically, and there's no repercussion whatsoever, right? Because that
Yeah.
just that's an incentive to keep doing it, right? If I can make more money by
Yeah.
cheating and nothing's going to happen, well, I'm just going to continue to cheat, right?
How did you even come up with this idea with Phenom Poker? How did this originate? It seems like you've had a bit of a crazy life as far as going into tech and coming up with ending up here, basically, of all places.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been in poker for 20 years. I started playing in 2004 when I was 19, mostly online, um, and transitioned to a live player after Black Friday 2011, and then kind of moved more into mixed games in uh, around 2016 or so. Um, right around that point, I also started a technology company, so kind of moved away from poker as my primary source of income, but have still very much been a part of the community, been a regular player, have made a lot of friends and even business partners come from the poker world, things like that. So when I decided to start a new project, poker is just one of the things that has always been a close interest of mine. Um, so the idea to, for Phenom Poker, really comes from that background of, being in poker 20 years combined with about 10 years of, working in the technology world. Um, and just like everybody else, seeing the scandals, seeing the stuff on Twitter, people getting cheated, bots, collusion, RTAs, stables, just like I'm seeing the same stuff that everyone else is seeing out there, right? And with an entrepreneurial mindset, when you see a problem, you just kind of want to solve the problem. At least the problems that affect you or that you understand maybe better than the average person. So every time I would see these like site responses regards to cheating and some Twitter sleuth like breaks a scandal, right? And the
Hmm.
response is like, oh well, it's usually not very detailed or transparent, but it's like it leaves you with the impression that like, oh, there's just nothing that can be done about this. Um, and I probably differ from most people in that they're like, oh, okay, well, if they say it can't be done, it can't be done. And, whereas when I look at something, I go, really? Like, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't really add up, right? Like, if a Twitter sleuth can identify this problem, you, as the site administrator with access to all the data and the tools and, the resources to invest into solving it, should probably be doing a better job. Um, and that's when I decided to start putting thought into, well, if we were to create a new site, what would it look like?
You're actually kind of jumping right into what would be my kind of questions for you. Is
Sorry.
I do want to go. Well, that's good. That's a good thing. So, I mean, I want to go more into like your background and all of that. But I do want to talk about because I know the players will be interested in this. Will be what will Phenom Poker be doing that other sites are failing to do? What will be the difference between Phenom Poker? How's it going to stop cheating? I know it's a bit more community based. How will it be on the blockchain affect things? Let's start with the cheating, for example.
Yeah, so well, it's a pretty loaded question because there's not like a magic button that Phenom Poker has. It's going to be like, we're just going to go ahead and push the stop cheating button, and then cheating's going to end. That's not like a thing, right? I think the main difference is that is creating an alignment of incentives so that the operators of Phenom Poker are always highly incentivized to do what's best for the community. I think that that's the most important difference because from a pure like technology standpoint or utilizing tools or resources to fix the problem, like there's a plethora of different ways you can go about it. And some of the ways that we think will make a difference is by investing in more updated technology, right? Like having a platform that's built on the most modern tech stack that's utilizing the most advanced of vendors that are, there's a lot of companies out there that are built to fight non-human behavior online, or like fintechs are hiring these AI vendors to identify people trying to break their systems. There's always hackers when there's money at stake, right? um,
Right, right.
and I just think when I look out there into the landscape of online poker operators, you see like very dated software which inherently is going to come with antiquated methods because you're only as good as like the thing you're trying to protect, right? Like you can't have 15-year-old software and think that you're going to have the best ability to aggregate data or to identify certain, behaviors. Also, if you have like a multitude of different clients that are out in a production environment, for example, if you have like all these different downloadable apps, desktop apps, mobile apps, and you're not the actual creator of these technologies, you're pretty handcuffed on how you can manage all this different, all these different client access points that need constant updates. Are you forcing updates? Are you keeping up with all the new browsers, with all the mobile devices, tablets, all these things? It's very difficult for even a tech native company, and it's extraordinarily difficult for a non-tech native company. We know that most of these operators are not tech native companies. A good example would be like WSOP.com. They're licensing like 15-year-old 888 poker software, um, and it's not a secret. Just look at the software. Like clearly, Caesars does not want to be in the technology business, right? They'd rather be in the operate a profitable site business, which is fine. But you can't tell me that you're taking security very seriously when you don't have the investment and control in these areas. So, we plan to make those investments, utilizing the right vendors, taking a really data-driven, tech-driven approach um, to identifying, all the different types of um, pattern recognition that the data enables us to look at, like for example, collusion scenarios. Also making decisions on how we handle data mining, which is how RTAs happen, right? You have like a data mining scenario, and then they turn that into software to make real-time assistance possible. Um, we have to make very strategic decisions around that. Some of the decisions are still being made, and I think the community will have an input on, while other decisions, are really more about just hiring the right people and making the investment.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I never even realized that the sites may just not have the most up to date software to stop cheating. That makes quite a lot of sense. It just seems like, I mean, I know that computer security is very, very complicated, especially when stopping all incursions of some kind of cheating. But I definitely think there's quite a bit that can be done. Definitely, if people take like data analysis very seriously, you can tell if someone's cheating or not. I mean, it's kind of like
Absolutely.
hard. The irony is it requires like quite a bit of poker knowledge to hide it, I would think, or just look really, really weird. But if someone has all that poker knowledge, why are they going to cheat anyway? Because they could just like potentially win, I would think. As it takes like I would think it takes sophisticated effort to do either, and now you need both, and it's like okay. So it's like it would be like a limited subset of cheaters possible. I think that would get through. If you have the right technology and multiple different ways of trying to get rid of it.
Well, also like creating, like we talk about alignment of incentives, but you can also create disincentives, right? If you want to, incentivize the right behavior, you look at the behavior and you say, how do I incentivize this behavior? But then if you look at a behavior that you don't want to happen, you say, how do I disincentivize this behavior? And a good example with Phenom Poker is like in our user agreements, we have in there that if you play on Phenom Poker, you are giving the site permission. If you're caught cheating or doing something to break the rules or something that's unethical, you give Phenom Poker permission to publicly release the data and your real identity. This creates a big disincentive to cheat on Phenom Poker, right? Because in another scenario, like if somebody is just plugging into a network, and I don't want to like publicly put other operators' names out there, but there's a lot of like poker networks that have skins that make it very easy to create accounts. Like an agent can just create an account without verifying your identity or doing other things, and you then now have access to the liquidity pool of the entire network. Um,
Mhm.
if you're running like a stable or a bot ring or something like that, and your account is banned, well, you just create another account, right?
Yeah,
Easy. If your account is tied to your actual identity, you might not have the same incentive to do that thing, right? Because not only are you going to get banned, your identity, where you can't create another account unless you have another identity. If you're caught cheating on Phenom Poker, like, well, your actual identity could potentially get put out into the poker community, right? Ruining your reputation. We've seen we've seen this happen not by operators putting out that data, but just by players that get caught cheating, and now it becomes public information. I mean, it's severely damaging to their ability to play poker in the community. Some of them don't care; they just show up and play anyway. But a lot of the times, it really changes things. And I think we need more of that in our community. Transparency and not putting players in position where they're playing with people that are taking advantage of a situation or doing things unethically, and there's no repercussion whatsoever, right? Because that
Yeah.
just that's an incentive to keep doing it, right? If I can make more money by
Yeah.
cheating and nothing's going to happen, well, I'm just going to continue to cheat, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, then, yeah, like as you said, if someone has the mindset of like, I'm going to cheat to make money, and they're rewarded for it, or not punished appropriately, why would they ever stop? Like, then they
Exactly.
would be like, oh, okay, it actually is a good smart decision. Maybe it's even smart. Like, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so I actually completely agree with you. This is one of the things I wanted personally, and when I did something unethical, I have to mention this because people feel like, what the man? I mean, this is what happened to me. And I actually agree with it. There should be some public accountability for any unethical acts. I mean, there should be warnings too, probably, but it seems like it's the biggest problem with what's going on today is like people can just do whatever they want on the internet and there's no accountability at all. Whereas, actually, if you look back if you study anthropology in like small villages and things like that, people actually used to be a lot more reputable in a way, and this is because they were accountable if they did something bad. And there's a lot of things that were done that are actually quite smart in these quote unquote uncivilized villages, even today. And Yeah, I have to think of the book name and the title of the author, but matter of fact, there's actually lessons we can learn from in those villages that can apply to things that seem like they would never apply to, like creating accountability on the blockchain. I would think,
Yeah.
but
Well, like
yeah,
trials and like a lot of things were done in public, right? Like public open trials and executions, and the disincentive a lot of times wasn't so much that you would get hanged, it was that like your family would be disgraced, right? Which was like a huge disincentive to do things
mhm,
unethically back in the day. So and then obviously things change with the internet because you can do a lot of things like anonymously, right? Behind a computer, behind a VPN, like, and so people are able to, do more things without the risk of like being publicly outed, right? And that creates the wrong incentives. And, it all comes back down to like incentivizing the right behavior, disincentivizing the wrong behavior.
yeah, and creating the systems around that where those things are created. Actually, I mean, it makes sense. Even like the way the trials were run, and all these sort of kinds of things. Actually, there were quite a few attempts towards like justice and things like that. If you read into history, I was surprised reading. I was like, oh, people actually did give a shit in history, or a little bit smarter than what they appeared to be.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Like people used to really care about like the honor of their family name, right? So like even if you wanted to do something unethical, you would really think twice about it because stating your family's reputation is something that might not go away for generations.
there were quite a few incentives, in fact, when things used to be less complicated. I mean, I still think that they can be fixed. Actually, by the way, I can tell you this is one of the reasons why I want to be a tech entrepreneur because I believe that through tech, if you create the right incentive structures, I mean, this is part of the problem to solving these situations, then people can become accountable. This is precisely the tech venture that I personally wanted to create, but I realized it was over my head, um, and I went for something smaller. So yeah, it's admirable that you're trying to do that in the actual poker space, and I really hope you can succeed.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have a lot of really smart people that are working really, really hard to make Phenom Poker not just an idea, but a functioning site that people can play on and enjoy. We're getting, I mean, we're getting very close to launch, so it's coming. There's not a question anymore of like, is this thing coming? It's coming. In fact, as soon as we get off of here, I'll be in the alpha testing and playing around with it, and so that's really exciting. But the whole idea here is what you just said exactly. We want to create something that has a different incentive structure and ownership structure than than we've seen in the online poker space before. And I think in doing so, we can create something that is actually different, and that lasts. That's key, right? Like it's very easy to incentivize short-term behavior, but to do something that's perpetual, long-term, you have to really think through, like, okay, well, what do the incentives look like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Do we have a reasonable expectation that this thing's going to continue to behave a certain way, or is it just going to become another corporate thing like everything else? Which is
Right.
why we went towards a community-based ownership model, because by making the community owners in the site, and having a voice, we believe that that will result in a long-term incentive structure that's always aligned with the community, which is important.